consider me your official Debbie Downer of homeschooling. Let's do that, because I'm aware that I tend to post a lot of negative things about homeschooling. It is not that I have anything against homeschooling. I'm actually an advocate of homeschooling. I run a homeschool program. I am a homeschool veteran. I am a homeschool guidance counselor. But I'm a realist. And so with that said, I feel like some of us are missing the mark sometimes. And that sometimes starts to grow, and then it ends up being a bad experience for the kid, which is why we have Reddit, like Reddit homeschool stories, Reddit homeschool recovery, and things of that nature. So, with that said, here's a year-old post on the real pros versus cons of homeschooling. And let's go through it. I was hoping to get some real people with real experience sharing their stories. I don't know anyone in real life to even consider this, let alone do it. So I'm hoping to find someone here. I've gone through some of the stories. A major con is having to be your children's social life manager, far longer than you want to be. A few people live in towns where kids just playing outside in the neighborhood anymore. Even a lot of extracurriculars for children, they're guided by instructors the whole time, and then the parents just pick them up. There's no time for kids to socialize. You will have to put them in different activities, homeschool co-ops, take them to the playground, take them to activities at the library, and then reach out to parents, organize play dates. If you're a total who hates talking to other parents, homeschooling may not be for you. Not lying. That said, there's a lot of pros. You can travel whenever you want, not just during 8 weeks over summer. Your children can do many more cultural or educational field trips than they would otherwise get to, and see a lot more of the world. Personally, I enjoy curriculum design. Not everyone does. You don't have to sit down and do school with them for 8 hours every day. So especially in the younger years, they will get a lot more time to just play and be a kid. My recommendation is to actually put your child in a play-based, walled-off preschool a few mornings a week, and then supplement that with doing school at home. They would be 3, so you don't need to do a ton. And see if you enjoy planning and executing curriculum, or if you really can't stand it. Not every parent/child duo is cut out for homeschooling. It is a parent/child duo. That way they're also getting used to being around other kids and listening to adults who aren't their parents. Full-time, starting kindergarten and onwards. Never thought about starting homeschooling by putting children in preschool. That seems to be opposite of what you're trying to do there. I do understand the value. I just preschool being the healthy situation for my children. So if your children can thrive in preschool. Okay. Said on the major con, having to be your children's social life manager far longer than you want to be. And they said, I think that the pitfalls of public school for socialization really depend on the size and quality of the school. No good came from my friend's kid who was in public school once she reached high school, because she legit was just an obnoxious small fish in an ocean. She was obliterated from going from her tiny public elementary, then middle schools, about 18 to 20 student classes with 4 classes per grade, to a 2,000 multi-town high school. Her mom pretty much needed to handhold her for the first 3 years, setting up activities, driving her everywhere. Senior year was better, but it still presented issues that shouldn't have been for a kid getting ready for college. Yeah, the way the high school is set up is super jarring. And I have friends who are homeschooling specifically for middle school. And so I do worry a little bit about doing elementary school to homeschooling, which is an even more intimate group, to you. I would suggest that maturing and social is an ongoing conversation and one that has changed a lot in modern society. So maybe this whole social thing, it's really interesting because everyone's like, socialization. I homeschooled and my socialization sucked. Or that kid homeschools and your socialization sucks. Everybody's socialization kind of sucks. That's a really big question, and you'll get a lot of opposing responses. There's the hardcore homeschoolers, the anti-homeschoolers, and the people in the middle who know that no path is best for all kids in every phase of life. The people in the middle are correct. Pros. Lots of time in the early years to focus on positive behavior and good habits. In hindsight, this is what paid off most out of anything else we did. You can homeschool too, but having all day to work on character and interaction skills intentionally, stick with them as an expectation as they grow. Positive relationship with learning, forming habits with being curious, trying new things, joining lots of things in the community, making mistakes as part of growing. Reading aloud, all can be part of the family culture, customizing the curriculum to fit the child's needs. You can be flexible with what they're learning and go at their pace, which may sometimes be slower and sometimes faster than even you would expect. Very well. And like to learn about, or how they like to learn, their strengths and their weaknesses. Cons. Researching and learning about learning and how to teach them and how to schedule your day and how to meet all their needs, which phonics curriculum is best and which one you should switch to now that this one isn't working out. It's a lot of mental loads to carry. And I think this is where things start to fall apart. Parents think they can plug and play. So they'll spend that first year or two really researching, really mapping it out. And then when the child's brain shifts, when their maturity changes, when they hit puberty, everything changes and the parent doesn't want to do that again. And so they'll decide to switch to unschooling or to have the child lead, and they're not ready to lead yet. The math and the many elements of language arts and the art and the science and the history and the music and the many various social experiences, the older they get, the harder it gets. Running into learning struggles without support. If your child is resisting school, showing signs of learning issues, you might not have the outside perspective or help like you would in a school. It can. There are ways around it, but it can be expensive. People might tell you can homeschool cheaply, but quality curriculum matters. Any free crap online, and I have seen some free crap online, paying for the good stuff that comes with guides and support is worth it. Also, many extracurriculars and groups and outside of the home lessons add up. Lack of sports options in many areas once you're out of elementary years. Yeah, you have to work hard to keep them in sports options. This is being an involved parent who loves to learn with their child. Do the little learning activities in the 2 to 3 range, playful stuff, and read to them a ton. Take them to all the parks and libraries, and even if you decide to homeschool for preschool or even kinder, it's not a path you must commit to. It's not failing if you put them into school, it's growing with their needs. It's just raising babies. I'm unimpressed by the term. However, what this person said has some validity. Never too late to put your kids back in public school. Just understand that once they approach high school age, you need to have made a permanent decision, because you can't put a 10th grader in public school and not have the school make them start over unless you've paid a lot for accreditation and other things like that. Okay? I was homeschooling and there really weren't any pros. I succeeded in life despite being homeschooled, not because of it. I firmly believe I would have been much farther in my education had I been in a school setting with adults encouraging me to. It was also used to isolate and manipulate me, which is not uncommon. I feel I was robbed of a proper education and childhood teen experiences. Okay. Bad parents, homeschool bad. Bad parents, also public school bad. Bad parents are bad. I'm just saying, that sounds dreadful. The one major pro is being able to tailor the curriculum to your child's strengths and weaknesses. This is what I mean. If your kid is catching on fast, you can move on to the next thing and be challenged instead of being bored. Likewise, if it's taking a while to have a concept sink in, you can take your time and make sure they really grasp it instead of pushing ahead and settling for a barely passing grade. And this is the thing that I love most about homeschooling. It's essentially having a one-on-one private tutor available all the time, if the parents do that. If you're a parent who is attentive, even regarding social opportunities. Notice I didn't say socialization. That's for dogs. People of all ages need social opportunities. Moms need it, dads need it, kids need it. It is very easy to become insular. Provide ways to meet this need, whether it's homeschool specific groups, church kids programs, or other community programs. If you don't find something for yourself, it can become very lonely. There are other pros and cons, most of which have more to do with individual personalities and choices. Someone mentioned flexibility, which indeed can be a bonus depending upon family situation. But it can also be a con if you're lazy and a procrastinator. Or homeschooling is best viewed as a job for the parent. Please understand, this is a job for the parent. Come to it prepared and focused and willing to put time into professional development. Most people who view homeschooling negatively have personal experience that have involved serious family abuse, mental illness, or at the very least, parents who only played at homeschooling and made, at best, half-assed attempt at anything resembling education. Homeschooling can be done successfully, done very well, but it takes commitment and work. Some of the pros are only achievable for certain families because of the unique conditions of the family, and some cons matter more or less on an individual basis. For instance, some people think it's a pro to be able to wake up late, start school when they feel like it in the afternoon, and hang out in their PJs all day. Well, we've tried that and it feels terrible to us. Our kids works best. They're fresh in the morning and lose interest in the afternoons. I was definitely an 8 to noon homeschooler, plus outside programs. Doing school to drop school and travel or go to museums or do this or that whimsical thing. Well, we also tried that it's super disruptive to consistent forward academic process. Not having a set daily schedule was anxiety inducing for my oldest child, mine too. And it's part of why she is now in public school where the schedule is dependable each day. I can't deliver that. Turns out weekend crowds aren't such a terrible thing, lol. So for me, the ability to be loosey-goosey with our schedule, some call that being flexible, then a good thing. If your child's in a group and if your child's being taught by an outside program, unfair to the entire class, I'll that without warning to do some loosey-goosey thing. What I do to accommodate parents is I start the school year a week late, I end the school year a week early, and I take a whole month of Christmas. You know, but the schedule is the schedule otherwise, right? So they continue. The truth is you're only going to be able to create one homeschool. You're stuck with your own strengths, weaknesses, levels of resources, and individual children. The things that other people experience may or may not bear in your own homeschool, and that's no one's fault. You will encounter your own pitfalls, and you may find that the one homeschool you can create is not able to flex to meet the needs of all your children over all the developmental phases. It's worth trying in the little years, though, when developmentally they are still rather attached to you and learning core academic skill on widely different timelines. Tell yourself you tested out for kinder or K to second or some small time period. See what the pros and cons of your individual homeschool will be. That's all that matters to you, and that's all your children will have access to. I'm not sure I understood the end of that. They're saying homeschooling is individual, and some of the things people think are cons, like being able to play it fast and loose, isn't really a con for everybody. Okay, this person says, take my thoughts with a big old block of salt because I haven't actually homeschooled. My husband and I always thought we would do it, and when it finally became something feasible, the kids weren't interested at all. I do teach for an online school, and a lot of my students consider it homeschool. I am friends with homeschooling families. Cons: be expensive, be it time or money. Curriculum costs money. If you want to make it, that can cost time and money. As a curriculum as a curriculum publisher, I agree, it takes a long time. I thought I was gonna make a curriculum in a year. 4 years later, it is finally, anyone who was waiting for me, it is now going live 4 years later. So, cons: it may not be the happy scene you hoped for. Your children may not be ahead of other kids. They may need significant help and never be exceptional and impressive. I know many don't think this way, but I've seen it. There will be bad to try different things to figure out what works. You may run into issues you don't have the immediate support for things like learning or developmental disabilities. If your locale doesn't have a way for you to get services from public schools while still homeschooling, you're on your own. Mine does, most I know do. But then you're not an independent homeschooler anymore. You don't really have the full support of like homeschooling legal defense once you step into the public school for resources, just FYI. Homeschool social media. One friend occasionally gets depressed that she isn't able to homeschool while traveling the world on fancy vacations like some people she follows. Yeah, you need money to do that. Okay, pros. It generally is shorter than traditional school. Maybe not always the no more than 2 hours mantra, but you can cut a lot of filler and fluff. You're allowed to delegate whatever learning, teaching you want. If you struggle with this or that, you can find someone who does. Hire a specialist, find a parent who knows, etc. You can tweak things for your kids, even if you flat out bought a prepared curriculum. No one is breathing down your neck to follow it precisely. Depending on your state's requirements, you can choose a lot of what gets to be learned. You can incorporate your own morals, values, and views. Family time. It's very schedule friendly. Not all schedules are ideal for everyone, and there's plenty of advice out there for different schedule situations. I've seen people get into homeschooling for no better reason than the family work schedules made it hard to get kids to school in the morning. If your kids are in a homeschool program, like some of these classes rely on class participation, and it hurts the rest of the class if your child waltzes in my building at halftime. Okay, there's one more I'm gonna read because I think it sums things up nicely. Raising kids is a huge responsibility. Deciding to homeschool and also removes 90% of your ability to have time for yourself. It is a huge time commitment, stated. That said, there's a lot of flexibility in it. This person's daughter did 5 days of schoolwork and 3 days so that she didn't have to do schoolwork at her hockey tournament over the weekend. And that's kind of my point of reading some of the homeschool horror stories I have been reading. Homeschooling is a huge responsibility. Even unschooling is a huge responsibility. I know someone who unschooled beautifully, but it was a huge time responsibility and a lot of gas in the car. because it meant a lot of exposure and real world things. Anything you do with and for your children, please do it with all your energy. Do it with all your energy. If you don't have the energy to be 5 teachers in one, you might want to consider not homeschooling. That's it. Till next time.